Anyhow, Brian, would you like to do our segment now that we've had the recurring segment over the past few weeks on the drive-through of what we talked about earlier? I've dug in the file cabinets and got some of the TNA agent reports that I was asked to give right before they fired me for giving them. And then we've been reading those. Would you like to have the rest of the story now, bring this journey through hysteria into the close that it closed on?
Absolutely. This has been a very popular segment, a recurring segment here on the show the last several weeks. We hope we can find something to substitute for the fact that you only did a few weeks of these, but let's go back to this.
Yeah. Well, I've still got a bunch more. I've got the OVW drawers are jammed, and I've got talent evaluations and various paperwork and ephemera. If I could ever figure out a way to file it, I just have a file for one piece of paper. These things are all goddamn unique. But nevertheless, to bring people up to date, and you can hear it on the YouTube channel, that in TNA summer of 2009, Dixie had sent Jeff Jarrett home. Then, as we've pretty much established, Russo had manipulated her to fire all the people that Jeff had hired, which included Dutch Mantell and Creative, and Savio Vega was an agent, and Road Dogg was an agent, and I'm the last one. And there, Terry Taylor has asked me to write the agent reports. Tell us what you really think. Give us, some analysis on this, just like you do it in person. Don't hold back. I've read them. Was there any 4-letter words in it? Maybe a shit every once in a while. But was there ever even any? They were very professionally written report. They were written writs. If you've read the writs I've written, you'll know they're really well written writs.
I thought they were really fair, actually. It was kind of exactly what you would want.
Well, there you go. Well, hold on, more on that in a minute. But anyway, I've written those reports, and also, as we've established, they brought in a bunch of new agents, which unfortunately, and I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but they were not of the experience level at that level of production and et cetera. And they were all beholden to have a job, and they were very indie minded. Whereas we've lost our experience. Dave Sahadi and Keith Mitchell, the producer and the director, want me in the truck. I'm producing the main event matches. The younger guys were coming to me for input on stuff I wasn't involved in, to try to just help their presentation. I've been given Hernandez as a project to make Super Mex, and we're talking about bringing him to Louisville to help work out with him. And so all this is going, and Jeff Jarrett has called me to say, don't let Vince Russo go too far with his booking. You know how he is, that type of thing. So I'm doing all this stuff. I've given the reports. I've read the reports on the previous clips. And I actually found, because this was on email, obviously, this was my first year of email back in 2009. I got with the picture. I sent the last agent reports in that we just finished on last week's program reading. This is from Terry Taylor. T. Taylor at TNAWrestling.com. I bet that's probably not still a goddamn email address. Jimmy, in capital letters 3 times. Awesome, awesome, awesome report. Thank you for your insight, hard work, and passion. We need to hear these things. I'll forward this to management. Again, phenomenal job. 4 exclamation points. One would think I was on the right track if I'm getting this from the head of talent relations, wouldn't one?
That seems rather positive, effusive. Yeah. Jeez.
So anyway.
What was Terry Taylor's actual job?
He was the head of talent relations. He was the I mean, do I have to explain at this point?
No, I mean, he was Laurinaitis.
No, I don't mean to you, but I mean to the average person who the head of talent relations is. He sits in on the contract negotiations. He signs the paperwork. He's the liaison between the talent and the creative and the office and the business people. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he's the John Laurinaitis, you're saying, of TNA.
Well, God damn. just throw tar all over him. Yeah, you could say yes. I mean, in the job description only. I don't even want to do that to Terry. He's a stooge, but he's not goddamn that bad. Anyway, and also I found this is who got the agent reports. Terry Taylor sent them to Dixie Carter with carbon copies to see how many of these names you recognize. Andy Barton, TNA Wrestling. That would ring a bell.
I remember Mike Barton.
No, that's Bart Gunn's real name.
Yeah, in All Japan.
No, Andy Barton was some guy that they got to work in the office, and he is the one that Jeff knew that this was 2006, 7-ish, right after I'd gotten there, shortly after. Jeff knew that a lot of the guys needed some work and needed some work in front of people and or some training in non-indie ways of doing things, and had talked to Dennis Condrey, who's living in Huntsville, which is less than 3 hours on the interstate below Nashville. Hey, do you think you could set up a little training center? We could have guys from a lot of guys live in Nashville now. Maybe we could run some spot shows. We actually had to go and talk to and we did 2 meetings to talk to Andy Barton and Dean Broadhead, who was another big wig in the office. And not shit took place. But anyway, Andy Barton and Dean Broadhead. Matt Conway, he was the guy that worked. He was in WWF in the 90s, I think. Or am I confusing him with another? Yeah, I may be confusing him with another Russo stooge that worked in the office up there. And Russo brought with him. I think Conway may have been new. Come to think of it, I was there. Bill Banks was the Russo stooge. Matt Conway was the guy that Dixie put on the creative team, allegedly so he could take notes and do the paperwork. And actually, they said so that he could stooge to Dixie on what they were saying in the creative meetings. And Vince Russo. That's who got the agent reports, right? So out of those people, Andy Barton and I got a copy. I was copied on the email. So Andy Barton and Dean Broadhead were in the office naked, didn't know shit from apple butter about the wrestling show talent and production, and didn't care as long as it was allegedly supposed to be in the betterment of their company. And Matt Conway is the junior note taker on the creative team. And since Dutch is gone, I think about that time, about the only one left besides Russo and me and Russo and Dixie. So I wonder who would be the most upset about those agent reports, Brian, just in your unbiased but impartial opinion is what I'm trying to say.
The person who's invested in talent that you're not putting over the way they want would be someone, and the other person potentially thinking about the situation would be if there was a kindly old woman. Well, I shouldn't say old, but if there was a kindly woman who had some guy in her ear, in her email inbox, nonstop saying, this guy's this, this guy's this, this guy's this, they may see the ultra negative in the very fair report that you had been filing.
Yeah, well, he didn't come anywhere near her box, but he came all kinds of close to both of her ears. But anyway, so at that point, as I mentioned here before, my contract was coming due in, it was in October, November, December, one of those things, because I'd started 3 years previously about that time, and I was going to ask for a raise because I'm doing a number of things, different things. Like I said, Jeff has me keep eye on the fucking the whole show. The production crew want me in the truck more. I'm agenting the main event matches, but I'm also trying to work with the younger guys, etc. I want a little more money because I'm sweating my balls off because it's humid in goddamn Orlando. And then go ahead.
If we could stop there real quick for any of the listeners that don't know, you were driving down for every taping.
Oh, yeah, I was driving 20 times a year, 862 miles from the castle to the door of the Doubletree Hotel across from Universal. Why do you think Black Beauty has fucking 300,000 miles on it?
Those are TNA.
But anyhow, but it could be freezing up here, and you'd get there, it'd be 100 degrees and humid as a wet sponge. And we were outdoors all the time because it was a sound stage. And then you go out underneath a covering, but you go outside in between the sound stages and over toward the building that has the offices. So it was even worse. You're in from heat to cool all day. And then the fireworks start inside the fucking tin building, etc. But anyway, so after Terry Taylor sends me the email, awesome. The next time I heard from him, he calls me one day. I answered the phone, and that's when he said, Jim. I said, yeah, Terry Taylor, how are you? Well, I've got to let you go. So, okay. And that's when I laughed. I said, well, I was about to ask for more money, so I guess we're real far apart. I said, explain. And that's when he gave me the story about, well, Dixie doesn't believe you're 100% behind creative. In my jaw for a minute, I paused for a second. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, how is this news? How is this a bulletin that she's taken 3 years to figure this out when 3 years ago I tried to quit when he came here, right? Well, it's not just Russo, she doesn't feel you're 100% behind creative. And he's trying to kind of soft pedal the Russo thing. And, she just doesn't feel you could be as effective as you need to be if you're not all the way on the team. I said, tell you what, have Dixie call me and tell me, well, don't have Dixie call me and tell me that, and I'd be glad to talk to Dixie. He said, oh, yeah, yes, I really do. Have Dixie call me and tell me that. And I think it was the next, of course, she had such a busy schedule trying to shop around Real Housewives of Brentwood, Tennessee or whatever. So she calls me the next day. And this was the actual longest conversation I'd ever had with Dixie. And it's not that I was ever rude to her, ignored her. For most of the time I was there, she didn't come to every taping. If she did come to the tapings, my workday and hers very seldom intersected. We're all over the complex doing all these things that I did every day until I was goddamn exhausted, but none of it involved speaking to or interacting with Dixie. If we were in the hallway, I would say, hello, Dixie. Or if she said hello to me, I'd say hello back. Pass a word about the weather, but there was never any interaction or need to, and no avoidance of saying. Until, as I said, after she sent Jeff home, somebody running that thing had to be there. So then she was there more and was in the meeting and would have a couple meetings backstage with the talent. But nevertheless, so she calls and says, well, Jim, we don't think you're 100% behind creative. And again, I said, Dixie, Terry said that when you say that, you're talking about Russo and I don't know how this is news, how this is surprising at this point that I've never pretended to be behind Vince Russo. I've been behind TNA. I think it hampers your job if you're not fully. Now she's saying my job has been hampered. I was still trying to be nice. I wanted to say, which one of these 5 fucking jobs has been hampered that I'm doing currently for this fucking wacky company? But it could hamper your ability to do your job. I said, I'm behind TNA. That's why I'm trying to make it better. That's what I've been doing. And I've got nothing but praise for doing it. And it seems like everybody else in the company, except one person, wants to do more with me instead of less with me. But anyway, that was the deal. is I gave her several opportunities in the course of this back and forth to just come out and say, Vince doesn't like you. He's mad at you. You're changing his shit, and he believes it's worse because you're changing it. And my calm, rational statement was, I have never supported Vince Russo in any way, shape, or form, but I've done my best for your company. And that's all I can say. So she said, well, the door is always open if things change and you can get 100% behind what we're doing.
Oh my God.
I swear to God, she said that. I swear right now on my dead mother's grave that Dixie Carter said those words. And I responded to her by saying, that will never happen if Vince Russo is involved. But if you ever get rid of him, call me back and I'd be glad to work with everybody else. So I just wanted to give her a chance to see if she would actually be honest and Terry Taylor, who knew what was going on. And see, this thing, I got cranky with Terry more I thought about it, even, weeks later, because he knew what was going on and just sat there and just didn't say anything. Well, that's it. So anyway, at that point, for once I knew, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't, take the baseball bat to anybody or anything or whatever the fuck. And Jeff's gone. Dutch is gone. The cause is lost. This guy shows no signs of going anywhere. I didn't know Hogan was going to come in and fucking start fucking with him, months later. But I'm driving to fucking Florida and back 20 times a year and sweating my balls off in that goddamn place and eating that fucking DoubleTree room service till I could smell it in my sleep, and just trying to counteract the fucking damage that this goof was doing with what he was writing on the show that we were trying to fix. So I was like, fuck, I've spent Jeff, I was mad at Jeff for a while because I quit 3 years ago. We could have saved all this. But anyway, I was like, all right, it's no fun anymore. The cause is lost. And come to find out, they never would be as successful as they had been that previous couple of years to this day. But then, boom, phone calls over. It wasn't fucking 2 hours. The news was on the internet that I'd been fired. And Brian, guess where from?
I don't know.
The Sun newspaper in England. When they'd done some of those shows, because they could draw in England when they first went, like 2007 or 8 or whatever, right? They drew decent houses. Somebody with the Sun and their online arm started doing wrestling coverage, and they had he was a stooge for the TNA office, somebody in it, wonder who, more on this in a minute, and would print stuff for them, and publicize their shit. Fine. Terry Taylor calls me. Within 2 hours, they know about it in fucking England, and it's on their goddamn website. They've already been able to write it up. I'm like, what the fuck? And again, this is 2009. I know everything's instantaneous now, but there was no Twitter. And besides that, we had a private phone conversation. Well, me and Terry and Dixie, right? And just instantly. And all right, but it was just the news that I'd been released. And then I can't remember how it was, honestly, how long it was, but not too long after that the story came out, what really happened. That I had been fired for blowing up at Vince Russo in a production meeting and screaming at him and acting unprofessionally. Do you remember the story, Brian, when it came out, right? But anyway, yes, the Sun, and people can look it up online, that I was screaming about, why are we pushing Eric Young? The whole deal with the match with Sting and Hernandez. I covered it in the Agent Report, the production meeting, where Vince had booked these two top babyfaces against each other. He'd broken Sting's ribs with Rhino's gore. The heels are going to interfere. Sting is going to roll Hernandez up and beat him. I said it backwards the other way around last week, whatever. But this whole goddamn Gaga thing, I'd talked to him in the car on the way down on the cell phone for the only time ever. We can't do this. It's going to bury these guys and blah, blah, blah. Let's do this and that and the other. We worked out a change. I go there Monday. They've changed it back. We have the production meeting. I fucking argue with them and they change it back again. All the agents, Terry Taylor, Vince Russo, everybody sitting in the goddamn room. We're supposed to present a united front to the talent after what we decide in the production meeting, Brian. And the creative team has to go out and then everybody presents a united front. So we decided what we were going to do in the meeting and we went out and that's what we did. And I sent the agent report and everybody said, rah, rah, awesome, awesome, awesome. Then they call me and fire me. Then it's on the internet that they fired me within hours. Then shortly after, I've blown up at goddamn Russo because they had to come up with a story people would believe. Because it's entirely believable that I would scream and yell and threaten Vince Russo. And the specific match, why are we pushing Eric Young? Which I didn't say. I said, why are we pushing Eric Young into the middle of this thing? Because he's going to lay both of our top guys out with a baseball bat and stand over him while cutting one of his promos at a goddamn snail's pace. But nevertheless, so now it's all, I fucking write Terry Taylor a letter. Because now I realize that they've had to come up because they couldn't just come out and say, and I didn't even know, truthfully. Oh, and one more thing I didn't know, but they had to come up with something to say rather than, well, we fired Cornette because he was fixing Russo shit and doing his job too good. So they had to come up with a reason because then the heat would go on dipshit. But also, something that I did not know was about to happen that happened right after that. And people would have again said, oh, now we understand why they fired Cornette. So they had to give the people a reason why they fired me, why they just couldn't put up with it anymore before this thing happened, which that's when they announced that Ed Ferrara would be working the next set of tapings as Shitstain's assistant.
Someone who would be 100% on board with the creative.
100% on board with the creative. So actually, I've got two letters here to Terry. And one of them is before that I heard about Ed Ferrara. And one of them is afterwards because, well, you'll see why. So basically, and this is somewhere between September. Yeah, I wrote this September 18th. And then Terry Taylor got back to me on the 22nd after the weekend. And then I wrote him back same goddamn day. But anyhow, this is the letter that I wrote him after they'd fired me. But also after the news had broke on the internet and after the story had come out on the internet that they fired me because I blew up and screamed at everybody, right? Where I'm still trying to be nice because at this point, I'm not really that mad at Terry Taylor. That would simmer over time as he became more of a feckless stooge that just sat back and did nothing. Terry, the events of this past week have caused me quite a few problems on the internet and elsewhere, and I would like to ask for your assistance. At the last TV tapings, I did my job as usual and received nothing but praise. I was not told anyone saw our finish meeting as anything unusual, and you yourself have said nothing unprofessional occurred. I filed my agent report covering everything I did on both taping days, including the meeting, and you emailed me it was a great report. 7 days later, you called to release me saying the company felt I wasn't 100% behind TNA's direction. This is the same thing Dixie said when I spoke to her Wednesday morning. Both calls were handled professionally by both sides. Dixie explained if I'm not 100% behind creative's direction, it could hamper my ability to do my job. I explained I've always been 100% behind TNA, but I can never be 100% behind Vince Russo. We ended our conversation amicably with her saying the door is always open if I can get behind it all the way, and me saying I'd love to return sometime if the situation changes. Within 2 hours after I was released, someone in the office had leaked it to the internet. When I talked to you Wednesday, you said it was a problem and you were trying to get to the bottom of it. But later Wednesday, okay, there's our timeline. It spread all over the internet that I was fired for being unprofessional, throwing a tantrum, and screaming at Vince Russo, complete with a made-up scenario of what happened in our finished meeting in question. You know as well as I do this never happened, but where could the basis of this fable come from, if not someone in the room? Because think about this, Brian. I don't know exactly how many and who, but it was the agents, me, Russo, Terry Taylor. Well, let's say there's 7 people in the room, 8 people, 6, but whatever. Where is this specific false story going to be? When nobody else, it wasn't a public meeting. Somebody had to tell the story. We were in a meeting where Cornette did this, that, and the other fucking thing. It had to come from somebody in the room telling somebody else that that's what happened. Correct? Is there another way around it when nobody else knew we were in there?
It would have to come from that room, and it would have to come from someone with a source at the Sun.
Or a son at the source. So, I continue. I've not made any detrimental statements about TNA or even commented publicly. I asked you yesterday morning if TNA or Dixie could issue a statement contradicting these rumors that there was no unprofessional conduct or blow-ups and I was released due to differences in creative direction, and you said you didn't think she'd have a problem with it. This was on a phone call. It's now Friday at 3 p.m., and I've heard or seen nothing but the same blow-up stories are being, because it was on every copy and paste website of the time at that point. So I said, I've worked hard for TNA for 3 years. I don't understand why this is being handled in this manner. I'm not asking for my job back. I'm asking for a truthful statement from TNA of why I was released. There were no blow-ups or unprofessional conduct. You've had time to FedEx me a termination letter, but I've yet to see one public statement from TNA that we parted amicably, which was my understanding. Then I said, Stace and I are going away for the weekend because it was my birthday, or the weekend after my birthday is no, it was my birthday week. Well, my birthday was Thursday. This was Friday the 18th, and we were going somewhere for the weekend. Anyway, I said, when I return on Monday, I'm going to have to address this publicly and rebut the internet stories. I would like to do this in as little detail as possible and move on, but it's hard to do when I'm the only one defending me. So anyway, finally, I'd appreciate it if by Monday afternoon, you or Dixie could email me a statement from TNA concerning my release that I can quote from or distribute that illustrates these rumors are false and attributes our amicable parting to creative difference. And I will not denigrate TNA and I won't attack Russo. But I don't appreciate being painted in this light. If I don't have something on Monday, I'll have to start defending my reputation as best I can. I know if we truly did have an amicable parting, I don't want to spoil it, but I need some cooperation from TNA. I know it's pay-per-view weekend, but 2 paragraphs wouldn't take long. Right? So could I have been any nicer? Do you think?
You're bending over backwards to not blow up.
Because, and you've seen me, I always try so hard that when I finally do, I've just let it go too far and it goes too far. So anyway, here is an email that I got on Tuesday morning. Well, he wrote it Tuesday at 2:48 a.m. on September 22nd, 2009. This is from Terry Taylor. Hope your weekend went well. We forwarded the UK Sun article with the retraction and accurate story. Is this what you were looking for? We're hoping that in the future we'll be able to work together again. Please let us know if there's anything else you'd like from us. And what they forwarded was a UK Sun article from in the same wrestling column. Brian, the story that was told that I was a complete batshit nut and screaming at people was quoted from an industry insider. That was the attribution on the quote from, the industry insider on what I did that was unprofessional. After plainly stating that I wanted a statement from Dixie and that Terry Taylor said she wouldn't have any problem with it, et cetera, et cetera. You know who was quoted as saying, no, everything was fine and nothing happened? A TNA source. A TNA source says the story we had wasn't true. Nothing happened. You motherfuckers. So I wrote Terry back when he asked, is this what you were looking for? Terry, actually, no, that's not what I was looking for. An industry insider told the Sun I was a raving lunatic, and a TNA source told him I wasn't. With no other explanation of why I got fired. If the door is always open, people have to be asking why I got fired in the first place. There's nobody in the entire company with the balls to just come out and say, we picked Russo and Ferrara over Cornette, but Cornette did nothing wrong. Because over the weekend, that was the taping and the pay-per-view. That's when fucking shithead showed up. Ed Dreadlock Ferrara. Possibly still with some of my spittle running down his fucking cheek. Couldn't miss that fucking cheek anyway on that fat face. Nevertheless, I go back to my letter to Terry Taylor. I said, is there anybody with the company, the balls with the company to just come out and say it and actually put their name on it? Is there a reason you couldn't have just called me and said, we're hiring Ed Ferrara and given me the chance to quit without the embarrassment of being fired for no other reason? I now know that the TNA personnel planted both stories with the Sun, so I have to assume the unattributed retraction was sent just because of the email I sent you. And if I hadn't complained, that would have been the end of it. And you'd have just left me hung out to dry with people slandering me on the internet. Because think about that. When I come back again from the weekend, not only am I expecting some kind of somebody, even Andy Barton, saying, no, we loved working with Jim. But instead, I get the unnamed TNA source, and now they let me know because she didn't know, and Terry Taylor didn't bother to tell me on like Wednesday that Ed Ferrara was going to be there Saturday or Sunday. And the only reason, obviously, he said, I'm not going to be around Cornette. The last time I was, he spit in my face and cussed me out. And Russo had sold her, oh, I need help. I need help. No, a 5-year-old child could do the shows he was doing. All the rest of us needed help because of him, but he's the one that needed the help. But if Terry had called me and said, Ferrara's coming, he knew I would have said, you know what? Check, please. Jeff's gone. Dutch is gone. How to put up with this fucking guy? And now Ferrara? No. I tried to do this 3 years ago. You wouldn't let me. See ya. But they got to orchestrate this whole fucking thing. So I'll continue. And by the way, I go back to Lance Storm's comment at the time. Trading Cornette for Ferrara on a wrestling show is like trading your house for a tent. I continue on. The fact is, I was let go not only because Russo knew I was a threat to his job, because I illustrated at every taping that he doesn't know what he's doing, but also because he somehow convinced Dixie that Ed Ferrara is in some unknown way a benefit to a wrestling company. That's TNA's decision. And as I said, if I'd been offered the opportunity to step aside, I would have, without having to slander the company. I offered to do that for Jeff 3 years ago when he hired the guy. Instead, you made me a heel on the World Wide Web. The only regret I have about my tenure in TNA is promising Dutch and Jeff that I would coexist with the guy because I knew then how it would turn out. I just didn't know how long it would take. And then basically, yeah, I hope we'll be able to work together again because I still wasn't mad completely at him at the time. And I was frustrated because everybody deserved more than what they're getting there. Because that's when I had to say, okay, here's what goddamn happened. And started explaining to people what goddamn happened. And then Ferrara lasted what, 3 months, maybe. He quit and went back to whatever hole under whatever rock he occupies in the real world. And then by that point, Hogan was fixing to fucking run Russo off. And then he got so toxic, they had to hire him under the table. And the whole thing was a goddamn, 4, 5, 6 years of high school drama.
When did it come out that, I'm forgetting now how it emerged, the email where Russo sent to Dixie, was it before this or was it after this?
No, that was after in one of the lawsuits. That was a few years after that. There was a lawsuit. I can't remember which one it was or who was suing, but some of the emails came out where, he said, oh, well, Cornette looks like this and that. And boy, we ought to have some hot chick or whatever. And Jeff is too this and that and too wrestling. He was, from the time he got there, he just stabbed everybody in the back by going to the gullible leader who didn't know what they were doing. But and still, that's the thing. This will sound strange to some people because I'm the one who tells my own stories about when I've committed mayhem on people and taken a bat to shit, right? Because they're true and I have people know about them. So at least I'm going to tell you what happened. Does anybody out there think that I would be denying that I screamed and yelled and threatened at Vince Russo and had a meltdown if I actually did? The only time I didn't is they accused me of it to make me the heel so that they could get by with their fucking little scheme. And then it was a couple of months later that I wrote the famous letter that got me letters from their lawyer, and I've got on paper that Russo is in fear of his life for me for the first time. I mean, that was the first of two. But they said I violated confidentiality clauses, so I had it up on my website for a couple of years. Their lawyer's letter, the letter I wrote threatening, allegedly they said Russo's life to Terry Stooge test. I said, I was trying to find shit on my new email thingy. I saw that Terry, now it's sunk in for 3 or 4 months. That weasel didn't say a goddamn word. He was in on it. He knew all along, wouldn't even tell me as a friend, that the guy was coming or what they were doing. And so I wrote him the Stooge test, the letter telling him what I really wanted to do to Vince Russo. And that's when he forwarded it to Russo and their lawyers. And they sent me the letter back from their attorney, who was an entertainment attorney, telling me that they'd reported me to the FBI. Oh, Christ.
You, at some point years later, I want to say, remember, I think it was before the podcast, or at least before I was doing it with you. Maybe I'm wrong, though. You made up with Terry Taylor at some point, didn't you?
I think I've talked to him a time or two. I believe this was, again, had to be 10 years ago or whatever. I believe I've seen him and talked to him, but he was still a weasel in this instance. But like Ole would have said, so many other weasels have come along that pissed me off so much worse. I don't think ill about Terry anymore that much. He was a great fucking worker. Wonderful wrestler. I'd known him at that point for 29 years. At that point, that was 15 years ago.
Did he get these jobs because he looked clean cut? Like he looked like an executive, or that he had any executive skill or talent, or, he just had the right friends?
No, he's very intelligent. He was very well spoken. He does look nice and clean cut, and he was diligent. He knew the wrestling business, but he was a good person for an office position where he would take instruction well as a good employee. He was not a person who was going to pound the desk or stand up for anything or lead anyone in a certain direction or be the head of booking or the head of whatever, but he was a polite employee.
But a weasel.
But a weasel, yes. But not a thieving weasel like we sometimes talk about weasels, but, you know.
To the best of your knowledge, all these years later, and obviously we don't know about Dixie, how many of these people have fallen out with Russo? Like Jeff and Russo aren't. Are they cool or are they not cool?
Oh, I mean, I don't think they'd start punching each other in the face, but I don't think they speak, and I don't think Jeff misses it. With Terry, I think he and Russo bonded over the God delusion. Because I don't know what happened to Terry, because when I knew him in the 80s, well, Dundee said it best. Terry Taylor, if somebody cracked your head open, little pussies would fall out of it. But then suddenly they're riding in the same car and they're having prayer meetings and they're doing the whole thing. And I mean, Russo, maybe Terry is genuine about it. Russo can't be genuine about anything. It's just genetically incapable. But whether he was, genuine about it or not, if one would think that a religion that's trying to show you the way to live would keep fucking assholes and goddamn leeches out of your car, but there they'd be. So I think they bonded over that.
And obviously, as it would bear out, you were the problem in TNA. Everything got better.
Everything got better.
Everyone got on the same page, and it really changed the company's trajectory.
Yes, they were on the same page as soon as the big wrestling star that had sued the fucking head of creative the last time they were together came in 2 months later. Well, things were peachy keen from that point on. Oh, fuck. That's what I'm saying. They had a graceful way out with me. And that's the thing. That's another thing I was mad about Terry, because Dutch knew, but he was gone. Jeff knew, but he was gone. Terry had known me for a long time. He should have known and told him, if we tell him Ferrara's coming, he'll just quit and he won't show up. Or if we tell him Hogan and Bischoff are coming, he'll just quit and he won't show up. And we don't have to slander anybody. But because I was about fucking, I was fed up with it anyway, but I said, God damn it. It became you know me, when I get a grudge, I've driven to fucking Florida 60 times over the last 3 years, and I've sweated and I've worked on this fucking thing. Plus, as an on-camera management director and all this other stuff I've done, I'll be goddamn if I'm going to quit now. I could outlast this son of a bitch. Sooner or later, he'll just have a stroke. It was something. So that's the only, I was like, I did this for 3 years for nothing. We ended up in the same place. I could have gone home 3 years ago when Jeff wouldn't let me. And I'd have saved 3 years of eating and gaining weight. That's what I was pissed about.
And then Hogan comes in, and the last image of Hogan on TNA was him like walking out on the ramp while Dixie was holding onto his leg.
Yes, and he was dragging her. Please don't go, Hulk. Please don't. Ah, fuck you, you trailer trash. I'm leaving you. Oh, Christ. Well, anyway.
Well, obviously, Jim will be honored this year at Slammiversary, entering the TNA Hall of Fame.
Yes.
In the email category, Jim Cornette.
Best emails of the year. Well, hey. Back in the old days when they taught the guys in the wrestling business, don't write shit down. It can't come back to bite you. It won't expose the business. Well, see, you wanted me to write shit. I just did as I was requested.
You should just sent everyone that email that Terry Taylor sent you. Like, great, excellent, exclamation points.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I dropped the thing here. Hold on. Let me just see here. Wait. Oh. I threw it down. Oh, when he sent the report to, who'd I say? Who was on there?
Dixie
Dean
Russo.
Broadhead, Andy Barton, Dixie Russo, Matt Conway. He sent the report to all of them, but where he said, awesome, 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 phenomenal. Thank you for your insight, hard work, and passion. We need to hear these things. He only sent that to me.
Politician. My favorite. I'll say this again just because we're painting him in a bad light for his own behavior. I was at Terry Taylor's return in 1992 to the WWF, the Meadowlands. It's the opening match of the card, I think. And he gets in the ring, and he's now terrific Terry Taylor. And he gets in the ring. I can't explain it other than he gives that Terry Taylor arrogant face that must have gotten to Vince to get the gimmick. And he just goes to himself, I'm back. And you hear right away from the crowd, as soon as he said I'm back, it's one of the funniest things I ever witnessed live.
I'm back. Would you like a thigh, a leg, a breast?
A wing.
A wing. All right, but so then basically, Brian, I'd been excommunicated from TNA. I'd been fired. I'd been left unemployed. I needed work. For the sake of this, we'll overlook the fact that I started with Ring of Honor 11 days later. And I was all verklempt. What was I going to do? If only I had then what the people have access to now, and that's the wonders. That's the wonders that can be performed for your home-based business that wants to spread out worldwide when you do business with Shopify. Folks, I'll tell you what right now. You may just have a dream of starting your own crumpet business where you bake the crumpets and you frost the crumpets and you decorate the crumpets. But how are you going to sell them goddamn crumpets? You need a website. You need product descriptions. You need product photography. You need an online store, a platform. You need a marketing team behind you. Those crumpets ain't going to sell themselves. Let's say you're a bugle maker. You think that bugle's going to blow itself? It is not. Somebody's going to have to do the honking. And our favorite honkies over at Shopify can do all of that stuff because they're your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns. They'll ship it internationally. If it gets sent back, they'll send it again. They'll keep sending that shit until somebody takes it. They're literally going to go from door to door and try to make people buy whatever the fuck it is you're selling in the way of crumpets or bugles. And potentially, if you were to stick a crumpet in a bugle and blow real hard, then that could be deadly pastry.
Well, again,
you could get brain damage.
I don't know any.
I'm just thinking about in some of the countries like Switzerland, that could be some method of warfare because they're neutral. But if you were just blowing a crumpet out of a bugle at somebody, would that be considered violent?
I'm not exactly. An interesting concept, not necessarily one that has to do with the wonderful abilities and skills that Shopify brings to you and your businesses. We use Shopify for our online store for ArcadianVanguard.com to bring you fine drive-through t-shirts, and you can use them as well.
What about the experience shirts? When are those coming?
You just got to say when.
When? And it'll be on Shopify.
Well, you got to say when and also give me some notice and artwork and then. When you say when and then I'll say then.
Well, all right then. And Shopify is going to be selling them because Shopify, if you want to sell your bugles, crumpets, or t-shirts, is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States is connected up to Shopify. They're spreading. The tentacles are growing around the world, gripping the competitors tightly. And said, did you hear Shopify is going to they're going to buy Amazon next week? Did you hear about they go out and buy?
Let's not say that. That's not true.
Well, no, you need to go out and buy 100,000 or so shares of the Shopify stock.
I don't know if they have stock. I don't even know if they're listed. Let's not tell people. They don't have to do any of this. What you got to do is sell your goods with Shopify.
You mean they're not a public company? I thought they had it right out there in front of the open window with the curtains wide open where you could see it. Well, boy, I'll tell you what, I want to invest in Shopify, and I can do that by giving them my business because they will then turn around and give me the business. And then there you go. You can turn your big business idea into, where's that sound effect, Brian? Watch that kid on a bicycle. Give me the... Oh, that was it. That's right. That's what you're going to hear is the ringing sound of bells ringing, syndicating sales made. That's a sales bell It was a bell made specifically for sales, and that's what you're going to get when you go to Shopify and turn your big business idea into cha-chings. Sign up for your $1 a month trial period right now and start selling today at shopify.com/JCE. That's /JCE. That's how you get the $1 a month trial period. Otherwise, they're gonna say, well, fuck you. Who do you think you are asking for services from us for only $1? We're a big international multi-conglomerate. But if you know me, you get $1 a month trial period. And then you can start selling today. Well, if you've got the idea and the pictures and the whole thing and you get a hold of them, and you might make it today, but I'd shoot for Tuesday. Shopify.com/JCE to make all that cha-ching money.